This is the standard by which we go by.
Okay, but that's just you
According
telling
to the
them.
standard. But
That's
that's what objective morality means. That's what it literally means.
No, objective morality it means that this statement right here would be true. It is always wrong to harm a child.
No, that's objective. No, that's absolute morality. You're confusing objective with absolute. Absolute and relative are not. I know the stuff. Absolute.
What are the differences?
Okay. Objective morality and subjective morality are the positions. They're called moral cognitivist positions. So you have moral cognitivist and you have moral non-cognitivist. A non-cognitivist would say that moral propositions don't express moral things. The expression "stealing is wrong" is not a moral proposition. It's more relating along the lines of an attitude. For example, emotivist would say "boo stealing," right? It's expressing a feeling of boo on that. It's called the booyah theory. So either like something is good, yay; something bad, boo, booyah.
Booyah theory, really?
Booyah, yeah. That's I don't make this shit up, but it's booyah, yeah. And then this prescriptivism, which would be that stealing is wrong, is a directive saying don't steal. But don't steal is not a proposition. It is not true or false, right? You can't say don't steal. True, don't steal. False. It's not a proposition. It's just a statement. That's a non-cognitivist. So a moral cognitivist says, yes, there are moral propositions, right? There are moral facts. The subjectivist says they're independent upon a person's bias and influence, non-independent of mind. The objective person would say, no, there are moral facts that are not contingent upon those things. I think they're both. They're subjective and there's objective. There's been overlap and changing of these words throughout the literature. They don't even mean anything half the time in the conversations because people are conflating them with absolute, which means across the board to everybody. Just because you have an objective moral framework over here, somebody could say, well, I don't accept that framework. I don't want to accept your math. I'm going to make some other math. Okay, go ahead. It's still an objective framework inside that mathematical construct. And so when you say that objective morals don't exist, you're literally saying you can't have math. It's called subjective reductionism. So this is why I find it really odd when people say, well, yeah, now I tend to moral error theory, which just basically says moral propositions exist, but they're all false due to an instantiation issue. But that's a whole different ballgame. But yeah, this notion that this objective morality doesn't exist if you make an objective moral framework, to me, is bizarre. I think it's a lack of understanding of what it actually entails to be objective. That's why Sam Harris wrote a book on this. I mean, The Moral Landscape. He makes a very good argument for that.
He's an atheist. Question. By the way, Reese C says, Steve, can you explain high impact hypothesis and how was our moon formed?
High impact hypothesis, is that that's when a large object struck the Earth. I forget the name of the object. And it caused an ejecta that formed the moon about 4 billion years ago. And the moon is recessing from us due to conservation of angular momentum because of the lag time on the tidal forces. Oh, and by the way, I should get this out there. If you can give me a minute or two, Kyle. When you left the other day, the gentleman we had on, the flat Earth person, well, that wasn't a flat earther. He claimed to have a master's degree in science. Okay, and we were talking for a while. He was right and wrong, but he didn't seem to know the topic very well. And what his argument was actually this: that when you have the moon pulling on the Earth, it's going to cause a little bit of elongation of the Earth. The Earth is going to be gravitationally pulled toward the moon along with the water. So the bulging we're seeing is not like lifting off the water so much as the Earth compressing, causing a bulge, and the water bulging on that. And that's fine, right? I mean, gravity works ubiquitously on both the water and the Earth. So I don't have a problem with that argument. But when we were asking him some pretty basic questions, he didn't seem to have knowledge of it, and he claimed to have a master's degree in all this. And he was just kind of poeing. It was kind of bizarre, and he didn't understand calculus either. So I don't know. I don't know what to make.
He thought tides and waves were the same thing.
Yeah. Well, again, he may have just been poeing on air, right? Because when you guys went off air, he's like, "Of course, I knew what Bernoulli's equation is," and I'm like, "Well, I still don't think that you do." So I don't know what his actual education was. It was really hard to tell, but I think he wasted Flat Earth's Fight the Flat Earth's time either way, and it's a little disconcerting. So if you're a Poe, don't do that shit. either way.
1 second.
We don't want to talk to people that fake what they believe.
Daryl Frost says, I would love to come on the show one day and school you guys about how gravity in the universe works in overall terms. Well, today is your lucky day, sir. Please leave your email
Gravity
address.
does not curve space.
Please leave your email address in the live chat here, and we'll let you do that. Now,
so he says gravity does not curve space.
Space-time and our universe is not even 4-dimensional. I guarantee you he won't leave his email address to come on here. Guaranteed. Or there'll be some.
Know. I mean, there's two ways to look at space-time. One's called the Minkowski approach. The other's called the Neo-Lorentzian. The Minkowski approach is that space-time is interwoven, or it's actually that space-time manifold is what it's called. The Neo-Lorentzian is you have 3 dimensions that are dimensionally in space and 1 in time. So it's 3D plus 1D. Most of the time, people don't usually use the Neo-Lorentzian model because it doesn't really hold up. It's so much easier to think of space-time as an actual manifold. But we do in our daily lives use Neo-Lorentzian. For example, Kyle, if I said, hey, meet me at this location, I have to give you a latitude, longitude, and altitude, a 3-dimensional thing. But if I don't tell you what time, right, it doesn't do any good. So it's 3 dimensions plus 1 temporal thing. But in Minkowski, it's all one. It's basically, this is your space-time coordinate. And that's how it's generally thought. So
I don't see him saying anything else. Wait, I have not got a Skype or Discord set up, but I'd love to come on. You don't need a Skype or a Discord. All we need is your email address. We'll send you a link. It'll use the same browser that you're using right now to watch this through to bring you on. You don't need any of that stuff.
Yep.
By the way, for the person who asks where does the word Poe come from, Poe is a person who writes a parody of it's basically, it comes from Poe's law. It is almost impossible to tell a person it's Poe unless they admit it. But
it came from an actual person. It came from a guy named Nathan Poe. He was actually he was on some forums a long time ago, back in the mid 2000s, and so he basically came up with this expression that you can't really tell the difference between somebody who's really believing this and somebody who doesn't. I don't remember exactly what he said. There's actually a guy. His name was Poe.
There's also a disambiguation that comes from Poe's law. It's actually saying the same thing. It says it's impossible to tell if a person is a Poe, usually unless they admit it. They feign that they are a part or believe in a certain aspect, and unless they admit that they are a Poe, in fact, it's hard to tell, which is true.
It really is. I've seen some shit where I go, I don't know whether this is satire or legit news. Actually, it's every time Trump speaks, but I really half the time have no idea what's going on. I'm like, is this legit? Is this? I have to check into stuff so often and go, I this can't be true, and find out that it actually is, or is that really true? And then I find out what it isn't. So yeah, you can't tell.
Daryl Frost, we are waiting for your email address, sir. I noticed that you haven't said anything since I told you that we didn't need a Skype. Please put your email address and then we'll get you in here. But until then, I have something else I would like for us to watch. Dave, I'm going to send you this. Let's see. Here we go. This is really gonna make you think, Steve. Because when listening to this, I literally could not believe the level of stupid that I was watching. Where's Daryl Frost? Daryl, where are you? Isn't that just like somebody though, Steve, to say they're going to school us on something, and then you give them the opportunity and they never.
I mean, it's weird how you go from objective morality to curvature of space. It's like, we're all over the place in the show. Somebody had asked me a question, if I can answer it real quick, before you do your thing. Steve, does nuclear fusion break the conservation of mass? Doesn't it get converted to energy? Fusion and fission work on the same principle, only in reverse. You have what's called a fission or fusion yield curve. We used to call it the May-West curve, but that's no longer politically correct to do it. But the May-West curve basically tells you how much energy you're going to get out of a system as opposed to what you need to put in order to cause it to happen. So when you have like a uranium atom, the energy is stored in there, which is a mass deficit between the individual nucleons as separate as opposed to them bounded conditions. So when you cause that atom to fission, that deficit, that mass energy equivalency is going to be released, and that's going to be released in the form of energy in the fast fission fragments that are going to be produced, which are these things like xenon and samarium, promethium, technetium, and other things that are going to be vibrating very quickly right after the initial fission. That vibration causes friction, but that's in the form of heat. So most of the energy you get out of fission is because of the actual fission fragments that are going to be still vibrating and have a high kinetic energy right after the initial fission. Fusion works the same thing on in reverse. It's just you're putting them together. So it doesn't break any conservation laws. Not bad for 25 being out of nuclear stuff for 25 years, but I know that much.
Dave, are we ready on that? And Flamio, we'll send you a link to come on as soon as we get done with this video. This is really gonna okay. All right, Dave, let's go to about a minute in. I don't hear anything.
Brett sounds so much better when he's quiet. Yeah, let's keep it that way.
What exactly do you do? Do you donate all these dead bodies to science so science can have something
back it up
to
just a little
chop
bit.
on and cut up?
Dave,
will they
about 30 seconds
stick poison? She can't take care of the baby. She doesn't want the baby and gives off various reasons according to the bill
Dave,
why she doesn't want
15
the
seconds
baby.
before this.
They will kill it.
Perfect.
I'm not exactly Clinton were to become president that the Democrats would actually endorse killing a baby all the way up to 9 months old. And it goes beyond that. Apparently, if the baby comes out of the womb and the woman says that she can't take care of the baby, she doesn't want the baby, and gives off various reasons according to the bill why she doesn't want the baby, they will kill it. I'm not exactly sure how. Will they choke it to death? Will they suffocate it? Will they stick poison in it? How are they going to do it? And then after all these babies are dead, what are they going to do with these dead babies? What are they going to do with them? Are they going to take them down into the basement and throw them into Freddy Krueger's boiler room furnace? I mean, what exactly do you do? Do you donate all these dead bodies to science so science can have something to chop on and cut up? I'm not exactly sure. The biggest argument that a lot of Democrats used is, well, the baby's not going to be able to feel the pain whenever they were originally doing abortions. Well, baby's sure as hell going to feel pain if it's 9 months old or it's just come out of the womb for sure. It's definitely going to feel whatever fucked up shit you decide to do to it.
Does he just pull this right out of his ass? I mean, is it like he reaches in deep with pigs?
Well,
I mean, for fuck's sake.
I was just going to bring up that I've been looking at some of the posts in Great Debate Community, actually, out on the G+ that's going away. There seems to be this major confusion about 24 weeks versus 40 weeks and late-term abortions, etc., because they are passing laws that reduce the number of doctors in New York that it takes to perform a late-term abortion in cases where there is going to be a malformed fetus or a stillborn fetus, or there's some other, reason that it would harm the mother to keep the baby alive. And that in those cases, obviously, it's going to be really hard to get 3 doctors, because now that person who needs that procedure needs to pay 3 doctors instead of 1 to save their own life. So
yeah, that doesn't make any sense to me.
They're streamlining that process. So all of a sudden, now this has turned into we're greenlighting all late-term abortions for the purposes of birth control, which is patently
he has to know he's full
of
shit, Dave.
Yeah,
I mean, clearly he has to know this. He's always been known for deliberately misleading people, and so this is not some misunderstanding he has. He actually actively goes out of his way to take stories and just completely butcher them. Now, my position has been pretty much the same for a while. I mean, I used to be completely pro-choice. I mean, I am against late-term abortions, unless it's in specifically for the health of the mother. And then, yes, the mother has to take priority if that's the wishes of her or her spouse or whoever's in charge, right? I mean, that's up to them. Sometimes you have to make a life to death situation, which you have to say the life of the mother or the child. That's their decision.